Welcome to the Savvy Podcasting for Entrepreneurs podcast, a place for podcasters to learn what's actually working in the world of podcasting and how to use their podcast to generate consistent leads in their business. I'm your host, Jenny, and I'm so excited you're here. Hey, Savvies. Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. In today's episode, we are chatting all about repurposing your old podcast episodes. Because let's be real, most of us probably record an episode, post it, maybe promote it on social media a couple times, and then never speak of it again. And we put so much time and effort into our podcast. It is so important to work smarter, not harder, which is why repurposing your episodes is so crucial. Today, I'll be sharing about the different ways to make the most out of your podcast episodes. So let's get into it. So first up, we have the obvious one, share it on social media. And I'm sure you're like, duh, Jenny, I already do that. But I want to know, do you share your episode multiple times on social media after they've gone live? Probably not. You probably just share it once and then you're done. And that's no good. So take that episode and turn it into short social media captions, quotes for social media, audiograms, infographics, etc. There's so much you can do with it and get the most bang for your buck out of the episode. So you can schedule these posts to appear over the next couple weeks or even months as to not overwhelm your audience with the content. Just kind of sprinkle it in among your regular weekly content. Another great way to repurpose your podcast episodes is by turning them into a blog post. So this is something you should already be doing with your show notes. But if you're not doing that already, then please start, because having show notes on your website really helps you get more eyes and ears on your podcast because of SEO purposes. And it's just a lot better than just having your podcast be on the podcast platforms like Apple Podcasts and Spotify. It just gives you more reach, more potential reach. So why not do it? You already have the content, just turn it into a blog post. So crucial. And I believe I have an episode all about why show notes are important. I'm not 100% sure what the episode number is for that, but yeah, we definitely have an episode about that. Another thing you can do is turn your podcast episodes into emails to your email list. So I don't recommend spilling all of the juicy parts of the episode directly in the email here, because then they're not going to have any incentive to click over to the episode and listen. But definitely share, like, maybe, for example, if you had like 5 tips, maybe share 2 or 3 in the email. And then for the other 2 tips, head to the podcast and listen, or head to the blog post and listen if you have the blog post that has all the different tips, because you want to make sure you're catering to both audiences, whether they are blog post readers or audio listeners. So another thing you can do is turn your episodes into YouTube videos. And don't fret if you don't film your podcast episodes. I don't either most of the time. But what I mean by this is if they are more actionable videos, so if they're like tips, for example, like 5 ways to market your podcast, or 3 blah, 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 3 strategies to do XYZ, just more actionable videos, not just like a plain interview type podcast. You can film a video with these tips and put it on YouTube and be exposed to a whole new audience that may have never stumbled upon your podcast because they frequent YouTube. And if you didn't know, YouTube is one of the biggest search engines, and it's a video search engine. So might as well utilize it if you have more actionable videos. Or if you're recording your podcast interviews and you want to slap them on YouTube, that's totally fine too. But I wanted to also provide a way to get your podcast episodes on YouTube if you didn't record them as you went. Like, for example, right now, I'm not recording my face because I am in comfy clothes, but I could turn this into a YouTube video if I really wanted to. There's also a feature on a lot of different hosts where you can just have your audio and the static cover art image, and that can go to YouTube as well. That's what I currently do, and it works just fine. I mean, it's not super optimized, but if people wanted to listen to it on YouTube, they have the option to. And in that same vein, you can also turn your podcast content into live videos. So think things like IG Live, Facebook Live, And you can take this actionable content that you shared in the episode and share it in a live setting and allow for your audience to tune in live, of course, and ask any questions they may have. It just really gives that one-on-one live element, and it's like more of a two-way street than a podcast, because with the podcast you're talking to people but they can't necessarily respond unless you direct them elsewhere. You can also turn podcast episodes into Clubhouse rooms, and if you're not familiar with what Clubhouse actually is, you'll want to check out episode 193 with Laura Bowder, because we chat all about Clubhouse and its benefits, how it can help you with your podcast, etc. But basically, in short, it is live audio where you can further interact with your audience by allowing them to come up on the stage and ask questions about the content that you're sharing in real time. It's basically just a really great way to continue building that community with your audience, interacting with them, all that good stuff. And these are just some of the ways that you can repurpose your podcast episodes and make sure that every episode is getting in front of your audience multiple times, instead of just putting out there on the day it goes live and then never mentioning again, like I'm sure so many of us do, myself included. I am one of those people who does this really great for clients, and then when it comes to my show, it takes a backseat because obviously client work is priority. So don't be like me. Treat your podcast like it's your client, not like it's just your podcast, if that makes sense. But yeah, that is all for today's episode. I would love for you to hit me up in my DMs on Instagram and let me know how you're planning on repurposing your podcast episodes in the coming months. If you haven't already started doing that, let me know what you plan on doing with your repurposing. If you're already repurposing your episodes, good for you. Good job. I'm proud of you. But let me know what you've been doing with that. I'm curious. It's always fun to know how people are making the most out of their content. So, yeah, I will see you guys in the next episode. And yeah.
If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite podcast player like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Stitcher, and leave a review. You can find us at savvypodcastingforentrepreneurs.com and on Facebook at Savvy Podcasting for Entrepreneurs and Instagram at Savvy Podcasting. Make sure to join our free Facebook community for podcasters by going to savvypodcastingforentrepreneurs.com/community and join in on the exclusive community just for Savvy Podcasting for Entrepreneurs listeners. I'll see you there.